UFC is back in the Apex for a fun featherweight main event between two power punchers. Steve Garcia taking on David ONAMA. This is the full card predictions. We're going to go through each fight, giving you guys my breakdown on each fighter, and then ultimately picking the winner. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And let's get this video underway. First fight of the night, we got ALENCAR taking on Ariane CARNELOSSI. I'm going to pick CARNELOSSI. I don't have, high confidence on either side of this. I know ALENCAR does have some pretty decent jiu-jitsu, but her wrestling setups aren't that good. CARNELOSSI, her takedown defense is piss poor, but I think she can outmuscle ALENCAR. I could see, with them being in the Apex, I could see ALENCAR shooting for takedowns against the cage. But I think I think CARNELOSSI will be able to dig for the underhooks and muscle ALENCAR off of her. She's a really small female. If you look at her, for the division, yeah, she's 5'1", but she's more along the lines of like 4'11". You know what I'm saying? And then also has the shortest reach in the division. Her striking is very low tier. I think CARNELOSSI, who likes to, close distance, throws with mean intentions. I think she could back up ALENCAR, force her to wrestle. And like I said, her wrestling isn't that good. I can see, a couple of takedowns for ALENCAR, and she doesn't really have a finishing game with her jiu-jitsu. It's more so of like control, keep you where you are. She might throw a little bit of ground and pound, but I think CARNELOSSI could outmuscle her. I think she's better in the striking. I could see her landing some big punches. We did see, ALENCAR have some issues with striking. Again, of course, it was Stephanie Luciano, who's a way better fighter than CARNELOSSI, but I don't know. I'm not falling for the odds again on, big jiu-jitsu females. We just saw, a similar situation last card with Jacqueline Amarim getting dog walked by Mizuki, who was on a 2-year layoff, who didn't really look like she was that competent in the jiu-jitsu that Amarim presented. And now we got ALENCAR, whose jiu-jitsu isn't that good. Like I said, her wrestling isn't that good, and her striking is pretty bottom of the barrel. I think CARNELOSSI could pull it off. Big underdog here. Again, low-level women's MMA fight, but I'm not confident in ALENCAR as a favorite. So I'm going to go with CARNELOSSI. Let's get to the odds. Minus 240 for ALENCAR, plus 205 for CARNELOSSI. I think it'll be decision. I think CARNELOSSI could get it on the scorecards. Maybe we'll see ALENCAR, just get a control time win. But, if this fight was in Abu Dhabi and all she did was grind her out, or this weekend, and CARNELOSSI's landing more damaging shots, and we know who would win. But ALENCAR probably lands a couple of takedowns. I'm just not going to pick her as the winner in this matchup. Let's move on to the next fight. Phil Rowe taking on Suk Young Ko. I like this matchup, but I'm going to go with Suk Young Ko. I think there is opportunities for him to take down Phil Rowe. We have seen Phil Rowe taken down by the likes of Neil Magny. We've seen him taken down even in his last fight against Angelusa, where yes, he did come back in that third round, got the TKO. But if you watch those first 2 rounds, he was controlled for a majority of the time. He does have some scary boxing, can throw some tight combinations in close, which does worry me against Suk Young Ko, who strikes with his hands at his waist, very low guard, has been knocked out before. Phil Rowe is definitely capable of pulling off another comeback, third round TKO, but that's more of like a live betting angle. I want to see how the matchup plays out first with Suk Young Ko, coming off of his win over Oban Elliott, where he basically just busted him 30-27 across the judges' scorecards, and his wrestling was definitely on complete display. Whereas we known Suk Young Ko for, more of the striking. Even in his Dana White Contender Series fight against Cavalcanti, similar matchup against Phil Rowe, where they're both, long, tall, athletic strikers. I think Suk Young Ko can handle himself, man. I know he's at a big reach disadvantage, but I think the grappling threat is just a little too much against a Phil Rowe, who is pretty comfortable, laying on his back using jiu-jitsu. But I think Ko's control, I think his pressure from top is definitely dangerous. We'll throw some ground and pound. We'll look for finishes. I think he's more complete and definitely has the better wrestling out of the two. I do like Phil Rowe. I think he is live to pull off a comeback, but He's definitely going to need it. I don't see Sukyon gassing out like Angelusa did. That's one of the big reasons why Phil Rowe was able to get that comeback win too. Angelusa, he's slowing down in the third round. We've seen him slow down against Reese McKee. We've seen him slow down in a number of fights. So that was a advantage that Phil Rowe had going into that fight. I don't think he's going to have that here. I think Suk Young Ko is going to be in his grill for the 3 rounds that they're scheduled for. So I am going to pick Suk Young Ko. I do like him in this matchup. I do like Phil Rowe. Want to see, it could be a live betting angle if you think Phil Rowe has that 3rd round upside, seeing how the fight plays out. But official pick, her early pick, I'm leaning Suk Young Ko. I think the grappling, I think his striking is pretty competent too. I think he could deal with the size and the reach of Phil Rowe. I think he's going to close the distance, get him up cage, and take him down. So Suk Young Ko is the pick. And let's get to the odds, all scattered all over the place. Suk Young Ko sitting at -200, +170 for Phil Rowe. We hit him as an underdog last time against Angelusa too, so that felt good. Could be an opportunity here, but not early, at least in my opinion. Next fight, Montestrat Conejo Ruiz taking on Elise Ardelan. I'm picking Elise, huge favorite. I kind of understand it. Conejo, she's coming off a 2-year layoff, 3 knockouts in a row. You go back and watch it. Amanda Lemos counter right down the middle, caught her. Then she got, handled by Jacqueline Amorim 2 years ago. And then right after that, Edward Amara TKO with the ground and pound. She is not good, honestly. I don't really have much to say about her. She walks forward. She likes to trade. I think her chin is pretty bad. The only, like mixed martial art asset that she really has to her is that scarf toss or scarf hold, whatever you want to call it, where she, holds people. It's kind of like it reminds me of like the choke that Habib had on Connor. Like that's the only thing that she really has in the repertoire other than trading big heavy counter, or not even counter shots, just heavy hooks. But I think Elise Ardelan is more complete. I think she's a stout woman. I think she won't be able to take her down here. I think Elise will be striking from the outside. Like I told you guys before when we picked her in the Dos Santos matchup, I thought she won the Melissa Martinez fight where she was striking from the outside. I think the counter shots were available for her. I think Elise is a pretty good striker. Her takedowns, I think she will be the one, using the wrestling in this matchup. Her takedown defense is pretty solid too. I think she beats Conejo wherever the fight goes. Could be inside the distance, but I'm going to lean a decision, probably a 30-27. Might be an opportunity for Ardelan to get, I believe, her first finish in the UFC. Yeah, her first finish in the UFC. Both of these losses, the Martinez loss and the Shauna Bannon loss, I didn't think she lost either one of those fights. So she could be 3-0 in the UFC as of now. She's 1-2, where we got Ruiz, three fight knockout skid. I don't think she's gonna get it done here. I got at least Ardelan winning unanimous decision. -400. Not betting on her as a -400, I'll tell you that much. +300 for Ruiz, over under 2.5, -275. We didn't check the over under for the Phil Rowe Suk Young Ko fight. Over -125. Yeah, I think there's gonna be a couple of decisions early. So Elise Ardelan is the pick. Next fight. Interesting bantamweight matchup. Definitely like this fight. Should be higher on the card, but it is what it is. Ketlen Vieira taking on Norma Dumont. I'm gonna pick Norma. I think Vieira's really good though. I have to give her respect. She's got a really good size for the division. I think she can mix up the kickboxing very well. Her clinch game is pretty solid. Does use low kicks really well. Her motor is pretty good. I think she could just walk into shots against Norma Dumont, who likes to sit on the outside. She will use that first round to fill out her opponent, see, what the pace is like, what their pressure looks like. But she's very accurate when she does let the shots go. I could see the jab working for her, the two to follow it right up. She's pretty accurate, picks her shots really well. The low kicks are there for her. She was beating up Irene Aldana's lead leg if you go back and watch that fight. But she's very heavy on that lead leg with that boxing style. Ketlen Vieira is more, she flows a little bit better than Irene, but I think Norma can still use that same approach here as long as she doesn't get, corralled up against the cage and forced into clinch positions and taken down. I think she can win a point fight kickboxing style against Vieira, where, last time out we did pick Macy Chiasson to beat her, but she was able to use her grappling in that matchup. Where Macy, I have to question, her fight IQ now, especially looking back at that fight and then going into the Yana Santos fight. I think maybe it was just she was able to capitalize on some things that Macy does not have, and that's the reason why Macy isn't where she is. Whereas Norma Dumas, I look at her and I feel as though she's pretty competent as to where she needs to keep the fight, where she needs to do in the fight, and I think that's something that I favor for her over Ketlin Vieira. I think Vieira is pretty good, but I think Norma Dumas is a little bit better. So I'm gonna go with Norma Dumas. I think she gets it done by decision. I think it's gonna be like a point kickboxing style type of fight. I think Norma is going to land the cleaner shots. I think she's going to be able to fight off the clinch and avoid majority of the takedowns. I do think she gets taken down, but I think she'll be able to return to her feet pretty easily. So give me Norma Dumas to win by decision. Minus 140 for Norma, plus 120 for Ketlin. Over under sitting at minus 360. Yeah, I think we're going to the scorecards. It could be split decision. Ketlin can have some testy moments, but I think Norma gets it done at the end of the day. Next fight, we got Dante Johnson taking on Cedricus Dumas. I'm going Dante Johnson. Pressure, power, aggression. I think he finds the knockout. That's all I need to say. He is pretty short, for middleweight, 5'8", but his power makes up for it. I know he has a little bit of a reach disadvantage, but Cedricus is not really that good. Doesn't really respond to punches well. You go back and look at not the Zach Reese fight, but the Olajejek fight. Anytime Olajejek was throwing a punch at him, he was just dipping his head, looking away, and that just tells me that you're scared of power, and Dante Johnson definitely has some. I think he's going to knock him out first round, maybe, going towards the second or even early second. But I got Dante Johnson by knockout. I think Dumas is going to wilt to the power. I think he's going to wilt to the pressure. And I think Dante Johnson is a lock. Minus 315, plus 265 for Cedricus. Not on Cedricus. I think he is not UFC level. I think there's quite a few kinks in the armor that he needs to work out. And I think he was on his way to getting, beat by Zach Reese last time out. Granted, he got the groin shot. It is what it is, but I think he's getting put out this week. So give me Dante Johnson to win via KO. Next fight. Really good matchup. Timmy CUAMBA taking on Chang Ho Lee. I like Chang Ho Lee. We picked Chang Ho Lee last time out. We cashed on him as an underdog against Cortavius Romanes, and he finished him in that third round, which was beautiful to see. We picked against CUAMBA last time out. Thought he was going to get beat by Romero, but he ends up knocking him out with the head kick. I'm going to pick CUAMBA. I think his striking is cleaner, especially from distance. I think he has the faster hands. I think his offensive wrestling is better than Chang Ho Lee's. Chang Ho Lee's takedown defense is pretty bad. I think CUAMBA will have the better control out of the two. We do see Chang Ho Lee being able to scramble with a lot of these guys, but it's a Cortavius Romanes who was very undersized, not even really undersized, but he is pretty small for the division, and he was pretty explosive, but also lacked a lot of IQ. We saw that in both of his UFC fights. CUAMBA, he's been in there with some pretty solid UFC caliber guys. You look at Lucas Almeida, Balaji Oki, pretty fair display for that Balaji Oki fight too, where he came in short notice, and it was up at 155. But what makes this fight a lot more interesting is that it's at bantamweight. So I do want to see Timmy CUAMBA on the scales. He's not like a big 145er or anything like that, but being able to fight at these three different weight classes does not necessarily like bring a alert in my head, but I just need to see what he's going to look like on the scale. Because if he looks a little, skin and bones and drained, it could be Chang Ho Lee with that pressure that he likes to use. He does like to get to the clinch, throw some pretty big knees. He's more of like a marauder, doesn't really have good striking from the distance. He will use the clinch to try and take you down, and he will finish you there if if he has the opportunity. We saw him be able to scramble out of bad positions against Romeois, but I think CUAMBA is a little bit better from distance. We saw him be able to, take some punishment from Lucas Almeida, who's a slow striker on the feet, but he does have a little bit of power. We I just don't think Chang Ho Lee is gonna be able to close distance without getting clipped. I could see CUAMBA clipping Chang Ho Lee with something, And then if you look at, the competition that Chang Ho Lee's been fighting, it's a lot of, the Korean fighters where it's hard to get a read accurately on them, because who's the best Korean fighter to come out? Probably the Korean Zombie. The next guy that we thought was going to be it, as of recently at least, was Jang Sang Yu, but he just got knocked out. So we're gonna get more accurate reads on them as they come into the UFC and we get them tested against UFC level competition. So I am gonna go Timmy Kwamba. I think he's gonna have the advantage on the feet, and I think he can probably land some devastating shots against Chang Ho Lee. Minus 135 for Kwamba, plus 115 for Chang Ho Lee. Over under is minus 180. I do think we're going to a decision. Kwamba doesn't have like super knockout power. I know he knocked out Romero, but Romero was recovering. He wasn't completely out, just got clipped. And then the stoppage was a little questionable, but he definitely, landed a pretty nice shot there. So I'm going to go Kwamba. I think he wins. Definitely want to see the scales though. Sitting at 135 is definitely interesting. Next fight, Kevin Christian taking on Billy Elikana. I am picking Billy Elikana. When I look at Kevin Christian, yes, sure, he's 6'7". He's got an 80-inch reach, which, on paper it should tell you, yo, he's gonna keep it standing, kind of like Yusuf Bulgari, strike from distance, keep guys on the end of the jab and things like that. But he does not do that. He really just wings a lot of punches. His primary skill set is really just jujitsu off of his back, and it could be beneficial in certain cases because he does have super long legs. But if you're on your back, the guy on top of you is going to throw ground and pound. You know what I'm saying? So if your method of winning fights is throwing up Hail Marys off of your back, triangles off of your back, which is how he got into the UFC, he was getting taken down by Mazeo pretty easily. Wasn't really dictating range either. I think Billy Elikana could run through him. I think I could see Billy Elikana getting a sub. He does have pretty good wrestling. Will take you down. We'll get to that back fast. If you go back and look at the Guskov fight before, he got submitted, he was on Guskov's back within 2 minutes in that very first round, threatened to choke as well, and rode him out for that first round. Just ended up, getting put in his own compromised position. Guskov's pretty good. He's top 15 in the world right now. So no harm in that loss. And then, won a very low output fight against Ibo Azan, but he was able to dictate range. I think Billy Elikana will be the better striker from range, seeing that he does have the range disadvantage, which is kind of funny. But I think he's going to be better pretty much everywhere. I think he's live to get to Christian's back. I think he's live to submit him. So give me Billy Elikana via rear naked choke. I think he gets it done to get his second UFC win. Minus 250 for Elikana, plus 210 for Kevin Christian. I can't pick a guy whose main method to win is, a triangle off your back, especially at 6'7". Main card opener. If you guys haven't already, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. We got NASCIMENTO taking on Cody Durden. Short notice step in for Cody Durden. I do like Cody Durden. I have picked against him, a couple of times now. I think NASCIMENTO could win with his grappling. He is the better pure grappler in the matchup. I do think Durden does have some sneaky boxing, which can surprise NASCIMENTO. We know he's down to scrap. He's definitely you go back and look at the scrappy transitions between him and Matt Schnell, where he was able to get that ninja choke. You see the opportunities for Cody Durden to explode and get to these positions where he can make adjustments to the fight. But I think NASCIMENTO is just better purely in the grappling, and striking isn't bad either. I will say he's slightly better from range, but I think Cody Durden can mix it up in that pocket, which does make this a little bit interesting. but it's also a short notice Durden. He's coming off the knockout 4 months ago against Jose Ochoa back at UFC Atlanta. Before that, Joshua Van was able to tee him up in those last 2 rounds. He got the win against Matt Snell, and then he got knocked out by Bruno Silva. There's just opportunities for Cody Durden to get finished. I think Alan Nascimento, granted, he came off that 2 year, damn near 3 year layoff, beat Filio, where he was able to capitalize on the mistakes that he made, and seeing him, turning it around quicker than what he did his previous, gap that he had, definitely is a green flag. Whereas we're seeing a guy who's fighting pretty often, but he's also losing a lot. So just tells me that he's just fighting, not necessarily making the changes. Whereas we got a guy who is maybe not fighting as often, but is making the changes to advance his game. So I'm gonna go with Nascimento. I think he wins. I don't think we have odds on it yet. Yeah, no odds, but I think Nascimento will probably be like a minus. Yeah, I was just about to say like minus 140, minus 130 ish, minus 125 is what they got on Tapology with Durden sitting at plus money. Um, Durden's a dog. I won't count him out all the way, but I think Nascimento could get to some sneaky positions, maybe find a back, maybe find himself a win on the scorecards. Next fight, we got Charles Chuck Buffalo Radke taking on Daniel Frunza. I'm going to pick Frunza. Yes, both of these guys are coming off of knockout losses, but I think Frunza is more consistent with his power. I think he's more consistent with the pressure. I think his recovery is something that you have to definitely take into consideration with this matchup because, yeah, he got knocked out. He didn't really get knocked out against Reese McKee. It was a doctor stoppage. He had a really bad cut over his right eye, if I'm not mistaken. But if you go back and watch that first round, yes, he got dropped, 2 or 3 times? But the last 2 minutes of that round, he was beating Reese McKee and probably was on his way to his own TKO had they let the fight continue. He is pretty durable. I think he can get taken down. And I just don't think Radke will be able to control him. I know Radke trains with Bilal Muhammad, but one thing that we haven't seen from Charles Radke is the wrestling in the UFC. It's more so trading big explosive shots, looking for the knockout, staying in your face, the pressure that he likes to utilize. But that definitely got nullified last time out against Mike Malott, where he got finished in that second round, early in the second round too. I do think Radke is a pretty decent boxer. If he comes out and is tentative to engage in the striking, that's a red flag for me. And I definitely think that's what he's going to do. I think if he does wrestle, I can see him tiring out faster. I can see Frunza being able to, explode back to his feet if he does get taken down, explode with the combinations, the knees to the body that he likes to throw, the long hooks that he has. I think it'll be trouble for Charles Radke. So I think Frunza can win this fight by knockout. I think Charles Radke is going to come out a little too tentative and maybe not really respect the power from Frunza. If he does get going with the wrestling, I think he'll start closing distance a little bit more as reckless as we've seen him do it before. I think that could be a recipe for trouble. We have seen Radke put out a couple of times. I think Frunza can put him out again. So give me the underdog Daniel Frunza to win via knockout. Frunza plus 130, minus 150 for Charles Radke. Lined open, he was plus 105. Yep, plus 105 at open. A lot of love on the Radke side. I get it. Over 1.5, minus 155. Over 2.5, minus 115. I think whoever wins this fight is gonna be inside the distance. Definitely via TKO. Next fight, Isaac Delgarian taking on Yadier Del Valle. I like Del Valle. I think he is pretty solid, but I think Delgarian is a better grappler, so I'm going Isaac Delgarian. His sub threat from top position is dangerous. His ability to finish people from top position is dangerous. We go back and look at the Francis Marshall fight, where Francis Marshall is a pretty good boxer. He's a pretty good, he has pretty good wrestling too. But if you look at how Delgarian was able to control him and keep him flat on the mat, got to full him out later in the round too, and was able to drop some elbows on him and finish him in that first round. I think Delgarian is serious. Yes, he lost to C-Rod, but C-Rod is the prospect killer, but he also gassed himself out in that fight. I think that's something that he learned, and we saw him be able to, execute that against Brandon Marody, getting a submission last time out. Del Valle, on the other side, he's got good pressure. His cardio is pretty decent. Will, throw a lot of combinations, but one thing that is interesting that if we see him defending a lot of takedowns, it doesn't really affect his output. Like a lot of guys get tired and their output starts to wane, but now with Del Valle, you go back and look at, majority of his fights, it looks like he's getting, super tired, but he'll still put out the same output. So I got to respect that from him. I do think he has power, but I don't think it's like one shot KO power. We did see him drop Connor Matthews, I believe, twice in that first round, but he ultimately likes to resort to the grappling, which is where he found the finish with the rear naked choke. He does jump Gilly a lot, which can be bad in this matchup. I could see Delgarian using that, following him to the mat, pop his head out, and then leave Del Valle stuck on his back for the rest of the round. And he could be throwing down some pretty nasty ground and pound, or he could be finding his own submission. So I think Delgarian has the ability to dictate where the fight goes. The way that he's able to control people from top position is definitely interesting. I could see him, either getting a scorecard finish or live for his submission too. So I'm going Isaac Delgarian to win. I think he is the more physical wrestler in the matchup. Let's get to the odds. Minus 225 for Delgarian, plus 190 for Del Valle. I think that is about right. Next fight, we got feature fight of the night, Jeremiah Wells taking on Timba Gorimbo. I think Timba Gorimbo is going to win inside the distance. I don't understand why the odds are this close. I think people are really just gassing Jeremiah Wells' power. But if you really look at Jeremiah Wells, he's 39 years old. You go back and look at the Max Griffin fight. He's swinging a lot of power shots, right? But he's leaving himself out of position. He's getting countered. I think Timba Gorimbo is way cleaner down the middle. Like, I'm just thinking Timba Gorimbo 1-2 down the middle as Jeremiah Wells is loading up on something. Clips him, puts him out. Yeah, Wells is pretty good, with jiu-jitsu or anything. It's not even really that good. His takedowns are pretty piss poor too. He more so like falls into them and just relies on his strength. I could see Gorimbo being able to defend the takedowns. I could see him gassing Jeremiah Wells out if it does go past like a round, with Jeremiah just exploding. He pulled out of 2 fights recently because he's been injured. I'm not getting the Jeremiah Wells love. I think Timba Gorimbo is live for a finish. Yes, he lost, last time out against Vicente Luque, but wipe the Joel Alvarez fight out of your mind. Go back and look at the Kevin Holland fight. Vicente Luque is still pretty competent and pretty dangerous. He had Kevin Holland, he was trading, shots with Kevin Holland in the pocket. He even had him in Anaconda attempt, if I'm not mistaken. Vicente's still dangerous. Yes, he ran into, Joel Alvarez, but Joel Alvarez is damn near one of a kind. Got knocked out. Whatever happened in that fight is whatever happened. But I think Timba Gorimbo sitting at minus 130. I think that's a discount. I think he should be damn near 2-1. I'm not on the Jeremiah Wells side. I don't understand why this line is as close as it is. I think we're going to see a Timba Gorimbo knockout. Even if it does get to the mat, I can see Timba either exploding back to his feet or reversing position. Jeremiah Wells is pretty strong, but he doesn't have the best control. I think, and then getting subbed by Carson Harris does not sit well in my mind either. I think there's only one path to victory for Jeremiah Wells. It's like either a knockout or he finds some fluky submission. I got Timba Gorimbo winning inside the distance. I think he's going to have, he has the height and reach advantage. I think he's a better wrestler. The counter striking is clean. I can see, front kicks down the middle for him. I think Timba Gorimbo is going to walk Jeremiah Wells down. So give me Timba Gorimbo inside the distance. Over under sits at over 2.5 plus 105. Yeah, I think Timba Gorimbo knocks him out probably round 2. So Timba Mamba Gorimbo is the pick to get the momentum back going in his favor. Co-main event, interesting one at heavyweight. We got Waldo Cortez COSTA taking on Ante Walking Trouble DELIJA. I have picked Waldo Cortez in his last 2 fights. Yeah, we faded him against Ryan Spann for some odd reason. He was the lock against Sergey, but that didn't really turn out as we thought it would. I'm gonna pick Ante DeLija. I think them being in the apex plays into this fight a lot. The pressure that DeLija could put on, yes, maybe he doesn't knock out Waldo, but he can also clinch him. He's more active in the clinch. If he does take him down, I like his top pressure. I like his ability to find finishes from top. We've seen the ground and pound, not against Taipura. Well, I mean, yeah, dropped him and then got finished him on the mat. But if you go back and look, I'm trying to remember what fight it was. He took a guy down. Yeah, I think it was a Chandler Cole fight. Took him down and found the finish from the ground and pound. I like D'Elia, man. I think he's a little bit more dangerous than Cortez. Waldo, he's a good boxer, but his power hasn't really translated once he got into, top 10 of the rankings. He's beat Spivak on the feet, but he didn't really hurt Spivak. He clipped him a couple of times, but it was more so the output winning him that fight. And then Pavlovich, he didn't really clip Pavlovich. It was really, he was kind of low output in that fight, and then like the overhand rights that he was throwing, it was more so like a slapping shot. Whereas a lot of, if Ante DeLija is throwing an overhand right, it's hitting with full impact. So I think we do see Waldo, get his chin tested again in this fight. I think DeLija is going to be more aggressive. I think the pressure is going to be there from DeLija. I can see him closing distance a lot sooner because of how small that cage is, and we're dealing with some pretty big bodies here. I think DeLija training with Tom Aspinall is definitely going to play a factor, who's also a good movement style type of boxer. When where we got Waldo Cortez, similar style too. Waldo does have some pretty good low kicks, so maybe he can time those up. But I think DeLija is going to be able to walk through pretty much majority of what Cortez throws. It's just going to be like an output versus power type of thing. I think DeLija can win with the power. I think he can, force a clinch. I think he can probably get Cortez at least down to a knee and land some damaging shots there too. So I'm going Ante DeLija. I don't know if he finishes Waldo. I think he can beat him on the scorecards. I think he is live for a finish, though. I will give him that credit. Minus 108, minus 112 on the odds. Waldo slight favorite. Oh, what do you know? Did it change? Yeah, minus 105 now, minus 115. So DeLija slight favorite. Over 2.5 plus 115. DeLija decision plus 340. DeLija inside the distance plus 165. Let's see. DeLija submission plus 900. I think DeLija wins. I don't know how. Probably decision. I lean decision. But heavyweight division, you're always dealing with fire. One guy could get clipped and the fight could be over. You never know. I am gonna lean DeLija though. Main event of the evening. If you guys haven't already, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. This fight has been getting a lot of flack. I get it compared to, Cyril Gane, Tom Aspinall. Granted, however it played out, still on paper, it's a lot better, of course, than this fight. We got Randy Brown, Bonfim coming up next week. Then we got Marab fighting again. But this fight is pretty good, man. I don't understand the hate on it. I really like both of these guys. I'm a Steve Garcia fan. Picked him as a lock of the week a couple of weeks ago. And here he is taking on David Onama, who Onama's pretty good, man. But one thing about Onama is he can definitely get overwhelmed early. You go back and look at the Giga fight. He was getting clipped in the Giga fight. He had to resort to wrestling. You go back and look at the Romero fight. Was losing that first round. Won the final exchange of that first round and ended up winning the unanimous decision with the wrestling as well. JSP, a lot of scrambles in that fight. Finished Gabriel Santos. Shout out to him. That was a really important win. And then lost to Nate Landwehr, where he's getting overwhelmed in that fight too. Steve Garcia is definitely somebody who can overwhelm you. He can be a little bit sloppy. David Onama is definitely more cleaner. He trains with Yusuf Zalal, which is a very high caliber featherweight to be training with. But one thing I have to mention about David Onama too is I think he might be cutting a little bit too much weight. He has been fluctuating between 145, 155 consistently. The Giga fight was at 145. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Onama missed weight initially and then had to cut weight again. Romero fight was forced to fight at 155, and then he missed weight against JSP. So it's been up and down on the scales for him. He's always been looking pretty, sucked in too. So that plays into my mind here. I'm picking Steve Garcia. I don't know if I said it already, but I am picking Steve Garcia. I think Garcia has the better cardio. He can be clipped. You go back and look at even the Norton Becca fight. He did get clipped in that first round, but he was able to get back, work the body, found the finish there. He was finished by Steve. Steve was finished by Steve. He was finished by Maeshate a couple years ago. But since then, he's put on a 6-fight knockout streak up until, Calvin Kattar. But he did really well against Calvin Kattar. I told you he was going to force him on the outside, was more output. Definitely had Calvin very reactive to the power. I think Steve can overwhelm David Onama. I think either one of these guys are liable to get finished, don't get me wrong. With David Onama, he does have that comeback ability, but I think Steve Garcia is a little bit too much. Of a power puncher to overwhelm. You really got to look through the wins that he's had too. Like Calvin Kattar's a phenomenal win on your record. Granted, he's old. We could whatever. You toss that one up if you want to. Kyle Nelson win has definitely aged well. Finished him. Singwon Choi win has aged well. This one definitely stands out to me. COTES-ACOSTA, who's on the verge of breaking into the top 15, finishing him the way that he did, leaving him stunned, wrestling the ref, definitely was nasty compared to Onama, where it's a Giga fight. Giga coming off a long layoff. Romero, who is a featherweight, just got finished by CUAMBA, who's now fighting at bantamweight. You know what I'm saying? JSP, is JSP still in the UFC? I don't think so. I think JSP just got cut. Let's see. Yeah, I think JSP just got cut, if I'm not mistaken. And then Gabriel Santos, solid win, and then Nate Landwehr, where we just saw him get finished by Morgan Charrier too. I think Steve Garcia has a better power. I think he can carry it later too. I don't think this fight is going all 5. I think round 2 or 3 is where we're gonna see it finish. I think Steve is gonna be able to defend the takedowns, even with Onama probably using the better methods to get the fight there. I just think Steve Garcia is a little too explosive, and he definitely carries it later into fights too. He still had it in that 3rd round, whereas we look at Onama, I definitely see his output starting to wane later in fights. He will start hot, if the fight calls for it. He is pretty clean, but I think Steve Garcia being a southpaw, having the power advantage, I think he's going to win this fight. Slightly taller for him, does have a slight reach advantage. I think we're going to see Steve Garcia put together another finish. So I'm going Mean Machine to win via TKO. I say round 2 or 3. I probably lean round 3, but trying to find a round in this one is scary. Over 1.5, -105, under 1.5, -115. Onama or Garcia wins by decision plus 700. Yeah, we're not going to decision. Garcia TKO plus 105. Onama TKO plus 190. So like Steve can be cracked. We have seen him cracked before, but I don't know, man. Garcia by submission plus 2,000. Onama plus 800. Maybe if they force the wrestling, I can see Onama forcing the wrestling. Garcia being able to explode, get to a better position, but you're really just chasing there. Garcia in round. We have Garcia round 3. No, just Onama. Onama round 3 plus 900. I think Garcia wins, man. I think he's gonna win the power battle. Even though Onama is slightly better with the technique, I think Garcia could beat that. We just saw him beat a really good boxer in Calvin Kattar, who might have been, slightly slower. I don't think Onama has the fastest hands either, but Kattar still has pretty good head movement and footwork too, which is something that was, on display in their matchup. Onama, I think he can be hit, he can be cracked, he can be clipped. It's just a matter of who lands that shot. I gotta favor the guy who's been putting everybody out 6 fights in a row, barely going to a decision other than the Calvin Kattar fight. I'm going with Steve Garcia, Mean Machine to get it done inside the distance, and that is the full card predictions for UFC Fight Night. Garcia versus Onama. Let me know in the comments who you guys got winning in the main event. Let me know what you guys got for, the DeValle Delgarian matchup, the Chang Ho Lee CUAMBA fight. I definitely want to see the scales. I know you guys want to too. You know what we got coming later down the week, lock of the week. Then we'll do the weigh-in recap, full card recap after the fights are done. Make sure you guys turn on the post notifications, like, comment, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys later. Peace out.